Hello everybody, it is your professor, Rocco your boy, coming at you with another Age of Sigmar video. In this class, we are going to break down my experiences playing against the Incarnate of Ghur, and we're going to talk about what it is. I've got the rules, I've got the war scroll, I'm going to give you a little hint on who should be bringing this bad boy, and let's get into the video. Alright, so the Incarnate's here. These are the basic rules. Uh, it's a little open-ended because they're saying incarnates, incarnate. We might... The Games Workshop left it open-ended enough that there might be more incarnates for the different realms. But for the purposes of this video, we're just going to focus on the Ghur one, a little skull on the side of the book there. But an incarnate, as it says, is an entity born of pure energy, and they can be bonded to one of your heroes. You can bring them into your army. Alright? So, and the incarnate is bonded to a hero in your army, it's an enhancement. It's a unique enhancement. So it cannot go on a named hero because they can't get special spells, they can't get the incarnate. They can't get artifacts, they can't get command traits. This goes on Joe Schmo in the back that's leading your army while Techless is out front actually doing the damage. Alright, so put this on a Cathalar or a Rune Lord in cities even, you have a good time. The thing is, while the incarnate is bound to your army, life is great. If your hero that is bound to it dies, it goes feral, it goes wild. And what that means is when it's friendly to you, it's friendly to your whole army and doesn't attack your stuff, right? You send it off, it goes off to fight and does whatever. When the thing goes feral, though, in its wild form, as you can see, under wild form, it's still part of your army, and you still control how it moves, but it's not friendly to your units. So, like, if it went feral while it was within 3 inches of your guys, unfortunately, you got a fight on your hands, as your troops now all of a sudden are getting savaged by the Incarnate of Ghur. But we can talk about that for a little bit here. Because you still control it. You control its movement. Now, the Incarnate's got a bunch of cool rules that we'll get into that like prevent you from retreating. So once it's stuck into combat. But smart movement, smart placement will keep your Incarnate from mauling your own army. Now, the designer note here is once it reverts to its wild form, it can be attacked and can attack either army. Again, they really want you to reference that. Now, the Incarnate has different states and levels, alright? And a domination range. But we'll see on the War Scroll. As it levels up, it gets more killy. It starts at level 2, and they even give an example. If it starts at level 2 and then it kills its main target, which is like a monster, it levels up to level 3 and it gets extra attacks and different bonuses. And if it goes down to level 0, it's gone. So the Incarnate has a special rule for killing it. Because as you can kind of see from the T's there, in the top right corner, I'm going to move my mouse over here. It doesn't have a wounds characteristic. So how you do damage to an Incarnate, which is very important and how we're going to talk about how to beat it and kill it and deal with it, is you count the wounds that it's taken, and it can't be slain traditionally, right? Normally it's like, thing has 18 wounds, you kill 18 wounds of it, it's dead, right? Everything except for Marathi works that way. Maybe Croak. But in the Battle Shock phase, you count up how many wounds were allocated to the Incarnate. And the person who's actually commanding it rolls 3d6, 3 dice. And if you roll less than or equal to the number of wounds allocated to the Incarnate, it goes down a level. If you roll above it, you're fine. Now, what's this whole level business mean? This thing starts out at its second level and can go up to 3. So this is going to take you at least 2 turns to reduce it until it goes away. And because this happens in the Battle Shock phase, it's going to get to fight in the combat phase You know, you're going to have to worry about trying to shoot it. It's going to still be there, and it can tie up very important units. This thing is amazing. I'm not the biggest fan that it's put into a terrain box. This should be almost like a souped up endless spell. That's what it feels like to me. But it's no magic. It's a unit that you get. You pay 400 points for currently. It counts as a behemoth. It takes up your ally slots. You build it into your army and list building, and it is really freaking cool. So, again, here. We're going to go to the War Scroll. Alright, so this thing moves 12 inches, has a bravery of 10, and a 4-up save. Again, the save really doesn't matter because unless someone's doing consistently 18 wounds to it, you've got a chance to just keep it. The profile, again, starting from the top here, with the claws, it's 6 attacks with an asterisk. We'll get to there in a second. 3 to hit, 3 to wound, -2 rend, 2 damage apiece. And the tearing fangs as it bites you is starts at 1 attack, 3 to hit, 2 to wound, -3 rend, 4 damage. This thing is a monster, and it feels like it, right? So, remember how I said you had to bond it to a hero? Well, the Incarnate can only receive commands issued by the hero that it's attached to, right? You know, Ash Ketchum threw out Pikachu. He's the only one giving out commands to say, go and attack, tail whip. Same with the Incarnate right now. But if you give out the all-out attack command, right, all friendly units that are wholly within your big domination range, which starts at 10 inches, also receive the command. So this thing just acts as a buff piece as well as being killy. Also, if you have a friendly wizard that is, actually it just says a wizard, which is even better, you can add +1 to casting, dispelling, and unbinding rolls for that wizard if you're within the Incarnate's range as well. Which again starts at 10 inches on a huge base. Because the thing's like the size almost of a Mega Gargant, which is really freaking cool. And empowerment, how it levels up. Because we've talked about all the buffs, we talked about good killing here. So, if a monster is slain by wounds inflicted by this Incarnate's attack, Incarnate's got to do the kill and blow here, increase the level by 1. And if it goes wild, you add 1 to hit rolls for the attacks made by this Incarnate while it's in wild form, and it can run and charge in its turn. And if this Incarnate is in its wild form and is within 12 inches of a unit or an endless spell at the start of your charge phase, you must try to charge it. So, I know that sounds like a lot, but if this thing's running and charging, it can move 18 inches and you still command it, even if it's wild. You just send it away from your units so that it's only close to your opponent's armies. Nice and easy way to just get around what could be a feels bad of this thing going feral and just mauling the rest of your army. Now, Inflamed Savagery here. This is the following effects apply to all units that are within the range. The commanding player can reroll runs and charges with the Incarnate of Ghur. People like calling it the Crown Spine. I just like the Incarnate. It's more catchy. So that's also saving you command points. Units within its range cannot retreat, which, again, is why it's very important that if you do pop this in your opponent's army and they're near it, it's going to feel bad. But if you're controlling this and you can just send this thing as an alpha strike into your opponent's army while they're in their deployment zone, let's say, like what happened on my last game in the channel, what was used against me, this thing pinned over 1,000 points of my army in my deployment zone on its own for 2 turns because it was just, I had to fight it. The first time I played against this, my friend was using Stormcast and I was using Deepkin. And it lasted until, I want to say, the top of Battle Round 4 because he kept, it might have been bottom of 3, but I want to say it was top of 4 because he kept rolling low for the healing thing. Because that's the thing, like, you can do however many wounds you want to it. If they roll 3d6 and roll correctly, the thing just heals and we're fine, right? So like we're just gonna go back here. Again, if anyone's allocated to this, if you roll 3d6 as the commanding player, and if you roll less than or equal to the number of wounds allocated by the incarnate, its level is reduced by 1. You got to do that twice, thing's gone. So, if you roll above it, like there were times where I did 12 wounds and he rolled a 13, the thing just stays as it is. That's scary. So we're going to go back to the war scroll here. Now, okay, so the thing gives out an aura to reroll runs and charges, a buffing aura for your wizards, basically arcane terrain. It's saving you a bunch of command points, and if the hero commanding it issues a command to the incarnate, it billows it out to everybody around it that's in the controlling person's army. That just means that this thing probably, if we go back to second edition where command points we knew were worth 50 points in your army building list, still with that mindset, this thing's already, reroll a few charges and run rolls, the thing's already paid for itself, it hasn't killed anything yet. And then once it kills stuff, it's just really freaking good. And also, it has the Arcane Predator rule. And, oh yeah, by the way, if the unit in the range is a wizard that is not bonded to the incarnate, subtract 1 from casting, dispelling, and unbinding rolls. It also debuffs opposing wizards, but you gotta be careful because if you have more than one wizard in your army and this thing isn't bonded to that, it will debuff them. So it hands out a bucket of buffs, a good amount of debuffs. It's fast, it's killy, it's durable like Croak. It's like a reverse Croak, almost. With his whole, he pulls the ripcord and gets out of the game. And this thing also can devour endless spells as a monstrous rampage and try to eat them. And if it eats an endless spell, it goes up a level. So if endless spells and monsters are your meta, this is the thing that'll beat it. And probably the crazier part of this for me is that for each level the incarnate is, because if it's level 2, if I remember right, let's see here, because those asterisks there for the attacks, you should be able to add the level it's at, so that instead of that 6, if it's at level 3, it should be 9 attacks. It's 3's to hit, 3's to wound, -2 rend 2 damage, and then it should be 4 tearing fangs at 3's to hit, 2's to wound, -3 rend 4 damage, and that's where this thing just feels broken and silly, and it reminds me of like Big Marathi, the Shadow Queen there, where it takes multiple turns to get rid of. This technically could go away quicker because Marathi can only take 3 wounds a turn and she has 12. If I remember right. But because if you roll well and roll above the wounds taken, it just heals back to full as if it had no damage to it and goes into the next turn, scot free. If they're not consistently doing 18 wounds to this thing, if they're not consistently doing, I'd say even 12 wounds to this, the Incarnate of Ghur is just gonna last the whole game. And if it's gonna be leveled up to 3 by eating an endless spell or by killing a monster, and it can just keep leveling up even as it gets leveled down to 1. This thing's gonna stick around. So who should take it? Anybody. Literally anybody that has a 400 points in their list that they normally put in for a monster. And they're like, oh man, my monsters aren't durable. They didn't get the new War Scroll update. Oh no, my aspect of the storm Eidolon got too expensive, and I all of a sudden have points that I can shuffle around for a 400 point thing. Oh no, my turtle, Shelly, forgive me. My turtle got too expensive at 500 points, and now I only had 400 points to spend. So now this is there. It's cheaper than a Mega Gargant Mercenary. Flesh Eater Courts are gonna love this. Night Haunt are gonna love this. Anyone that's in a shooting meta is gonna love this because again, it can ignore it functionally ignores Unleash Hell. Right now, hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. Follow me, camera guy. All right. So your opponent has a unit of 6 long strike raptors, the big scary stormcast crossbow snipers. Right. The Incarnate of Ghur charges it. They unleash hell. They do 24 wounds. Great. I don't check to see if my Incarnate goes down a level until the Battle Shock phase. I'm going to fight them in combat. 6 guys is they're 12 wounds on a 4-up save. The Incarnate will kill that, earn its points back, go down a level, but what do you care? So now you're level 1 instead of level 2, and your opponent is down 480 to 500 points of models. That's a great trade. You know, you double turn. Oh, great. There's the Knight Draconis, who's a monster. I'm gonna go in there. It unleashed hell on me. Had its breath weapon go. Great. I don't care. I can't die yet. I go and fight it in the combat phase. Kill it. I roll good on my wounds thing. I would stay the level. I also killed a monster. Now I'm back to level 2. You've got more dragons. They're monsters. I level up from killing them, and I can kill them with a -3 rend 4 damage bite pretty reliably. Plus, the rest of your army is there supporting this thing with a little bit of shooting and combat of your own. And this just, again, it pins stuff in place. It prevents units from retreating, because that's the biggest thing. All right, like how I deal with Marathi Kane or Archeon or any of these big, normally single models. And Marathi Kane, I mean the Shadow Queen, not the little caster. They'll hurt too. Or like a Teclis, where if they can't retreat to reposition themselves, and I could just pin them in place, but like especially an Archeon or a Marathi, where like I used to do this with the old War Scroll for the defensive eels in Deepkin, where I used to be able to buff them to have a crazy save that was unrendable. I'd send them in, I'd maybe lose an eel, and then they were stuck fighting eels that were unrendable, and it just ignored the rest of my army because they couldn't do anything about it. This huge aura of 10 inches off the Incarnate of Ghur, and anyone that's in combat with the Incarnate of Ghur, where they just cannot retreat, is huge, and you will force people to have to deal with this, and then they can't because it doesn't die until the end of the turn, maybe, and they will be stuck in their deployment zone while you easily rack up objectives with the other 1,600 points of your army. And you know what? Sigmar forbid if they actually killed your bonded hero to the Incarnate, because at that point you've already had probably a movement phase or two to get your Incarnate of Ghur forward, and they're not near your stuff. Now it can run and charge. You still move it. You know, it's just when you deploy it, make sure it's outside of 3 of your other units so that it's not in combat, so it doesn't have to worry about having to retreat and charging your dudes, and you're fine. That's it. That's how you use this thing, and don't screw yourself. Make sure when you deploy it, it's outside of 3 inches of all your units, so that when they kill your bonded hero with some kind of weird alpha strike, or say the long strikes from before, it doesn't have to charge. It doesn't have to fight. Because you move it first, and then you just move everybody else away. You check to see if it needs to charge in the charge phase currently. Oh, what do you know? It ran 16 inches away from your army, and it's near your opponent who moved up because they took first turn and thought they were cute. And now it's a level 2 incarnate with run and charge and +1 to hit, and it is scary as hell. And it's honestly well pointed at 400 points. And like a Flesh Eater court where it's like, Terrorgeist die kind of quick these days because people are teching up to like kill a Mega Gargant. A blob of 30 ghouls on a 6-up armor save with a 6-up ward isn't really durable anymore. And with a lot of these spell doms stopping your Chalice of Usharan to regenerate ghouls, the Incarnate of Ghur is going to be a very durable hammer. It's a hammer, it's an anvil, it's a pinning piece. It does so much. It just does so much. And more people need to respect it for everything it can do. And a lot of people are converting these up. And we're going to see some really cool themed ones coming out probably in the next few months as people finish these hobby projects. And it's good, you know? And if you wanted to buy terrain for a home table and this thing comes in basically as a bonus, sweet. If Games Workshop releases this on its own after the fact, cool. If you have a because it's like an upscaled model of like the Mortarks from the Soulblight Glaive Lords and like Archon, I guess, is technically in Ossiarch Bone Reapers now. But it's like their mount with all the skulls in it. If you want to convert one up, good for you. It's good to use. It's fun. And I think pretty much anybody can take this. Because you know what? A lot of monsters in really elite armies are over 400 points. It could fight a Stonehorn and live. Stormcast Dragon, like the big Papa Dragons, the name dragons are 600 points. This thing saves you 200 points and is a little more durable. You know? Um, and again, just the buffing and debuffing it can do is just really freaking cool. And it's got a load of attacks that just come at you and maul you. In my games, again, what it came down to, like how to beat this, was I had to put a bunch of shooting into it. The first game with my Deepkin, because I had all the harpoon sharks in the turtle and my reavers, and I just kept shooting it until it was dead. And then that didn't necessarily work. It only took it down a level because my opponent, again, rolled it perfectly and saved it for a couple turns. Where then I had to fight it. And even then, I still almost died. And then another game, it just ran rampant. And then another game, it went into one of my big name Stormcast Dragon, Karazai. There we go, that's the name. And I save stacked on him, and I think he lived with like a wound after 2 rounds of fighting the Incarnate of Ghur. And you know what? I was so scared of it, I put way more damage into it than I should have. Because I was shell shocked from that first game where I kept trying to shoot it dead and my friend just kept rolling hot to save it. And then I wasted basically 1,000 points in my army twice trying to kill the thing when I just really needed to trust my dragon. And then I could have had my evocators on Dracolions murdering the spearmen for the cruel boys there. And it's one of those things where if you it's Murphy's law, right? If you don't dedicate enough stuff to kill it, it's gonna live. But the moment that the moment you're like, oh yeah, I could take it with like one dude just plinking away at it, it's gonna be fine. And you're like, oh, wow, that sucks, and it'll kick your butt. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to class. We are big on the Incarnate of Ghur. It's huge. It's wonderful. It's a really cool model. The rules are really cool. And I think a lot of armies can use this, especially until they get new battle tomes that will up their own things in power level. And even then, like I don't see like Night Haunt getting stupidly broken with things in a new book. I don't know how they could. So this is a nice monster to take, a nice behemoth. Daughters of Cain for a long time ran Gotrek and Marathi Cain, and this thing's cheaper than Gotrek and probably a little bit better. That's gonna suck to play against when you got big Marathi and this thing mauling your armies. And again, for the as regular folk that like Flesh Eater Court, Cities of Sigmar, um, I mean this thing could mess up a Maw Crusher if you sent it in right, you know. Like it's cool. And currently it is available for matched play. I I'm excited to play against it more. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to class today. And as I like to say at the end of all of our videos, class dismissed. Bye.